here's what we're going to do. We're going to make our ink doodle. And what you do is after you finish this assignment, or sometimes there's a different ink warm-up assignment, here's what we're going to transition to. And we're just going to call it an ink doodle because you've been practicing doodling with ink. So we're going to try to make it nice and precise and very sharp looking. To set it up, it's really quite easy. All you do is take a scrap piece of paper. This is just a scrap piece of regular paper. Fold it in half once, fold it in half twice. That's going to be the size, because we're not going to make this drawing really big because we don't have tons of time to do this. All right, so kind of center it on your final paper. In this case, I'm using cardstock. And with a kind of a light line, in case you make a mistake, you can easily erase it. You are just going to make that outline around this. This here now is just kind of scrap paper. Then in the center-ish, you're not right in the middle, but off-center a little bit, you're going to make a center element. That's going to make it so our little sections don't get too small down here. And if you thought the size of a quarter to a ping pong ball, right in there somewhere. So I'm not going to put it right in the middle. I'm going to put it off center a little bit. And this shape can be practically anything. It can be more geometric, like I'm going to do right here. It's not a perfect rectangle. I'm intentionally making it kind of a diamond shape. All right. Then what you do is either inside or outside of that, you just draw a parallel line that goes right around it, leaving a space that's definitely skinnier than a pencil. Maybe half the thickness of a pencil. Just like that. All right, then we're going to radiate out from that a certain number of times. And you need to do it this way so when you start to put in your textures, it can go dark, light, dark, light. I'll talk about that in a minute. So what you do is you imagine a dot right in the middle of this center element. And you are going to go to each corner. So if you want to, you can do it freehand, or you can do it with a ruler. I have one started. Let me preview this just a little bit. I already have one started with straight lines. Okay, so I'm going to do this one different. I'm going to do it more organic, okay, which means lines that are kind of wavy. And again, I'm thinking from here to here, from the center out to the corner, each corner. Don't make these lines really dark, so if you want to erase them, they won't show up later. Now, to make 10 sections, what we're going to do is on the top and bottom, we're going to make one little dot right there, and about in the center, one little dot right there, and then we can go right to that dot with our, in my case, a wavy line. And you will have 3 options as far as what kind of lines. I'll show you in a second. Along the long edge, we're going to cut that into about thirds. So it kind of, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of see how there's a third, there's a third, there's a third. Just kind of make your best guess. Make a little dot here and a dot here. Across, you kind of have it in the same spot, and you do the same thing. From here out to there, and from here out to there, and from here, this is kind of a tighter area, but that's totally fine. See, each one of these shapes is slightly different. Now you have the option of doing your shapes organic, or like you saw in my sample, straight. And here I'm just kind of illustrating where they go out to, or you can do it more geometric, where each of these lines, they're not the exact same, and each time they bend with an angle, and you use a straight line, but otherwise everything else is the exact same. So you have options there. Next, all you do is now you start taking one of your pens and using ink. And I suggest to do all of your outlining first. So you can see the bottom half here that I haven't finished. I would do your outlining first. And I'll just do a little bit here, and then I'll start to work on that one. It doesn't matter which pen you use, which pen. It does matter, however, the kind of line that you use. I'm going to ask that you not just do one single line like that. Okay, I'm going to ask, and there's a benefit to this too, I'm going to ask that you slightly make this line imperfect. We call it a dynamic line because it gets a little thicker, a little bit, a little thinner, then a little thicker again, then it might meet in the corner. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that better. So I intentionally left a little gap right there. And I'm going to take this pen and kind of fill that in. You'll see in a lot of illustrations and cartoons and drawings that kind of a line quality that gets a little bit thick and thin. That is a really nice line quality, and I'm going to ask that you do that on all of your pencil lines, even these that go in toward the center. See, I'm going to intentionally miss, and that actually provides you the opportunity to be imperfect, and it looks much better. That's why we call it a dynamic line, because it has thick and thin. It has variety. Now, this is my scrap paper. Don't make one line and then start to go like that. That's crazy. Okay, that's going to be obvious. You want this to be kind of subtle. And then you're going to do the same thing around your center element. See, I can go back and forth. I'm careful. It's intentional, but it looks like it was just a natural line that was made just a little imperfect. So I'm going to go outside a little bit, then back in. This space right in here, in between these two lines, and again, this line, even though it's supposed to be a straight line, I'm going to make it a little bit imperfect like that. Now, that little space right there is going to wind up being empty. Okay, so don't worry about doing anything in there. You don't want these lines to accidentally go into there. Leave it empty. That's going to provide some contrast for us. See, there we just kind of missed a little bit. It got skinnier here, a little thicker here. Then you can just fill in carefully. If you miss your pencil line a little bit, it's no big deal. Not at all. Okay, so you would do that to the entire thing. So I'm going to skip ahead to this one. Okay, as you can see, I'm starting to develop textures and patterns. And if we think back to this assignment, we can think of textures and patterns. And here's a texture. Those little swirlies that kind of meet each other, that's more of a texture. You can think of this as more of a pattern, kind of a checkerboard idea. This is kind of a pattern. It's the same thing over and over again. Okay, this is kind of a pattern just because you're kind of doing the same thing, but I would think of that more of a texture. Sometimes they're hard to describe. These little rainbows are doing the same thing, but I think that's more of a texture. And you can do the same thing again. These swirls are light. These swirls are thicker. So that kind of thing can happen. But the idea is sometimes you need to plan ahead. And what I'm going to do with this one down here, I'm going to make these leaves. So I'm going to plan ahead a little bit. And I'm going to draw out those leaves and those stems and make them come very close to each other, but not quite touch each other. Then I'm going to have it be dark around them. Okay, kind of like I did here. The spider web, in pencil, I drew a spider web. Then I drew these little scalloped lines that went all the way around and met themselves. And then I colored it in between the pencil lines. And now all I have to do is erase the pencil lines and it has a nice looking spider web. All these things, this one I pre-planned. I drew pencil lines first, and then I did the rest of it in ink. This kind of thing, you would have to plan that out. I drew pencil lines first, lightly. This one I planned out a little bit. I just drew lines here, 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 just where the straight edges are. And then I freehanded the ink lines, making more lines on every other one, and it kind of has that where you can kind of see some shading and highlight. This one, look at that dynamic line quality. I just kind of did lines that kind of worked with each other and changed them around a little bit here and there. It kind of looks like wood grain. This one, oh, and one thing you want to do, if you haven't noticed, you want to try to make each section, again, different than the next one, but a little bit lighter and darker. So this one's going to be a little bit lighter than this one. This one's darker than that one. So it's light, dark, light, dark. It doesn't have to be super light or super dark, but I really want you to control how dark and light these get. So if this one isn't dark enough, actually that's what happened. I made some of these lines even thicker because I wanted it to be darker than this one. So here I'm going to do these little zebra stripes, and I don't feel like I need to plan these out, but this was just a reminder of what I was going to do. If you do some fill-in, be careful with the fill-in, try to make it nice and complete. And you're going to go all the way to your little dynamic outlines. And then I would fill that one in. I won't do much, so I can just do a little one here. I'm going to try to make it have some variety. I'm going to do a skinny one right there. I'm going to do a longer one here. And then I fill in. Okay, so I could just continue with that one. There are going to be, in a slideshow, tons of options for you. Okay, there's going to be a couple pages that kind of look like this, that have lots of different ideas for you. There's another one with ideas. Here's a partially finished one with different ideas. And what you can do also is you can look up textures, patterns on a Google image search, and you're going to find a million things. And in class, my job is going to be to help you create some ideas, some textures and patterns that you want to create. You show me what you want, and I will, under my camera or at your desk, help create that pattern or texture. But with this practice that you have under your belt, be confident that you can do this thing, okay? And it winds up being a nice little, right now we're just calling it an ink doodle, but it really makes everybody an artist. So I haven't finished my sample yet. I'll continue working on that and maybe show you in class. Remember, you have options: geometric, straight, or organic. The center element can be geometric or organic, or it can be, an actual geometric shape, a circle, a square. That's up to you. Okay, so these are done in Sharpie just so you can see them well, and they're labeled. They're just samples. So remember, do it lightly in pencil first. Make those nice dynamic outlines to get it set up, and then you will start inking in each section with a separate pattern or texture, and we are good to go. We will sign it and put a pencil by it to take your photograph just as normal, and I hope you have fun with it. There you go.